This information is very valuable because it says to the American people, the president ignored this guidance, this advice, this information, this intelligence.
That the coronavirus was being mentioned repeatedly, that it came up at least a dozen times in January and February.
President Trump was also asked about intelligence he received about the scope of the virus earlier this year in light of a Washington Post report that claims, quote, U.S. intelligence agencies issued warnings about the novel coronavirus in more than a dozen classified briefings in January and February, months during which he continued to play down the threat.
We pretty much shut it down coming in from China.
Now, the virus that we're talking about having to do, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat.
We're finding very little problem. Now, you treat this like a flu.
What did the president know, and when did he know it? This president has presided over the worst disaster in our country's history, an assault on the lives and the livelihoods of the American people. And he did so by neglect of information, also denial and delay in accepting the facts.
Especially as you get deeper into February, and you start to see that evidence that there's no way this has been contained in China, it hasn't been contained in Italy, that it is just spilling across multiple borders. And of course, looking back at this period now, it's critical because it's increasingly obvious that February was a very important month.
The White House's consistent desire to downplay the severity of this virus is impacting exactly what you have just been talking about with medical experts there, and that is the potential to reopen, because there has to be a level of trust in what you are hearing for people to be able to feel that it is safe to go back. And also, there has to be a level of trust in that the information is correct so that local officials make the right decisions.
It's Greg Miller and his colleagues at the Washington Post who have reported that the PDB, the president's daily briefing, the most sort of sacred intelligence product, was sounding the alarms over the spread of COVID in China and the lethal danger that it posed to Americans as early as January.
Ducking the signal, spinning people, giving terrible misinformation that's been disproven, disinfectant on down. I mean, it doesn't stop.
I think the two are related, right? What happened in the past and the degree to which all the reporting suggests the president underplayed even his presidential daily briefing, according to the Washington Post reporting today.
In his intelligence briefings were reports saying, based on what we're seeing internationally, that's not likely. Now, there are two possible ways to interpret that. One is that the president internalized that, probably not by reading the briefings, because also in that reporting was indication he doesn't read the book, he just takes oral briefings. But in the oral briefings, perhaps he got the information and he simply chooses to discard it. He chooses not to believe it because it's an uncomfortable truth. The other option is he actually didn't get the information at all because the reporting says he doesn't read the book and he only gets oral briefings 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe his aides are doing him a disservice by not making sure he has that information on the days when he doesn't get oral briefings from the intelligence community.
I have to check. I would have to check. I want to look as to the exact dates of warnings. But I can tell you this. When I did the ban on China, almost everybody was against me, including Republicans.
The fact that he's still taking some briefings from the intelligence community is a very good sign. But to what end? If he's taking them and he's not internalizing the information being briefed such that he can go out through the whole month of February and say those things he said, then what is the point of those briefings at all?
Amid all this, one of the most closely watched coronavirus tracking models, this one from the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, revised its estimated death toll upward to more than 74,000 by August.
So let us try to say now, let's go forward. What do we have to do as we go forward, as we write the next bill, that CARES 2 bill, as we